Good morning, Bin Bin.
Hello, Susan.
Yeah, we'll just wait a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Typically, when you make this meeting, how early do you have to get up? Like, it's pretty early for you, isn't it?
I just get up 3 minutes ago.
Already. Then your voice sounds pretty, like, it sounds pretty clear. Like, it sounds like you've been awake for a while. Good. Does that mean like you typically, like for me, if I wake up one day really early, then I would just keep waking up around the same time. Like I won't be able to have different wake up times. Is that true for you?
No, I have to set up an alarm to get up early. Otherwise, I will just keep sleeping.
I see. Like where I live, every Wednesday is so annoying. Like the garbage collection, every Wednesday, they come around like 5:30 a.m. They're not meant to come before 6 a.m. And then following Wednesday, like I just keep waking up very early every day after the garbage collection. And then until like I'm almost back at my normal routine, and then the garbage truck comes again. So very annoying.
Hi, everyone.
Good morning and good afternoon. Everyone joined very on time today. I guess let me share my screen and we can get started. I see Manish joining our call today. Welcome, Manish.
Hi. So can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm Susan, by the way, one of the project maintainers. We typically meet every week at this time.
Oh, okay. Nice to know.
Cool. Let me share my screen. It is July 26th, depending on where you are. Okay, so as usual, we'll get started with our pull request. First one on the list is Jun Cheng's notation reference. I think Yi called out that our terminology is different and we need to update the notation references throughout the project. I believe Jun Cheng is still working on this one. And Akash, you've submitted some feedback this morning. Do you think it's almost complete?
Yeah, I think it's almost there. There's like a few references here and there that specifically related to like the artifact types that we would need to update. But I think beyond that, it's basically there.
And he mentioned in the PR that this would come in stages, like it'll be, stage 1, 2, 3. Do you know is this the first one?
Yeah, I'm not aware of what his strategy is for breaking it down. Also, I do know that there are a few breaking changes in this PR, so we'll need to call that out in the next release.
Cool. And for RC, like what does breaking change mean that we're now in RC?
Yeah, I don't know. If someone else wants to chime in on that, we've been kind of wrangling with that over the last few months. So
Yeah, and to be, like from our previous discussion, we said now in RC, any breaking change, ideally we would put it behind a feature flag, right? But obviously for this type of change, like that might not make sense. So is it just through communication? So this is a breaking change. Do you have any suggestions?
I think first for this PR, I will review it this week. And also, I would like to understand more about what was broken, sorry.
Yeah, Akash have started reviewing this PR as well as Bin. Akash, do you want to just do like what's the overview of the breaking?
yeah, so the main concern with this is that in our sample library rego templates, in the constraint templates that we define, they rely upon the name that we've set for the verifiers when requiring certain things. So like we have a template that we publish for making sure that all notation signatures, all images that we've come across are signed with valid notation signatures. Well, previously the verifier name was, I think, Notary v2. And now that we're changing it to notation, the actual template, the policy template changed. So if someone tried to use like an older version of Ratify and use, or vice versa with a different version of the policy template, then it wouldn't work properly. So that's like one level of breaking change. Functionally, stuff is going to work the same. It's just that if you had different config files that you had saved, like if users had been using a different configuration with the notation Notary v2 name, now we're switching to notation, their previous workflows could potentially break when they tried to upgrade to RC7.
So for example, like if say Kara's team, if they had existing templates from RC6, if they upgraded to RC8, their existing templates would need to be upgraded as well.
Yes. Yep.
I have one comment. Is it possible that we can still consume Notary v2 for the older releases? I mean, if we detect the verifier in the template was set to Notary v2, can still consume it. But since the new version, we always recommend the notation as the verifier name.
So your suggestion is like if we build two binaries and deploy both versions of the name?
No, I mean for Ratify can consume, if user use the old template, Notary v2 can still consume this value.
I see. So
this means that we can be backward compatible.
So currently we only have one property in the verifier name, right? And that determines the name of the verifier. Is that the registration? Like we only have
Yes.
one entry in our plugin map.
Yep, and that name determines which extensions get registered, right? So we don't have any sort of logic to do multiple name support.
And what would be the work, Akash? Like, do you think it's like one extra, like it'll be messy, but technically it's possible. Is that the right understanding, Akash?
It's possible, but we'd have to add like a hard-coded check in the code when registering. Like, oh, if you come in contact with a Notary v2 named verifier config, you need to just default to notations instead.
Yeah, it's yeah. I think I would like to also hear comments from other people. It is similar like for example, for the artifact OCI artifact manifest, right? So for that artifact manifest from the OCI community, this was archived. And however, for example, for notation, previously user also used some RC version at that time. The signature was stored using the artifact manifest in the registry, but since the new version, notation will not store the signature using artifact manifest, but for previous signature that user pushed, notation can still consume it. So actually, my idea here is similar. So if user upgrade Ratify to the latest version, but they still use the old template, at least for the verifier pointing to the notary v2, we can still recognize it and interpret it as notation.
Yeah. Thanks for that feedback, Yi. Like, I think we will use the PR or the issue to continue the discussion, and we can sync up with Jun Cheng as well. He's not on the call today right now, so we'll follow up on this one.
Yeah, thanks, Susan. And yeah, I will also review this PR.
Yeah, great. Feel free to like just summarize what we've discussed here as well.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Can everyone see my screen? I just moved it across the monitor, so I just want to double check again that you can see the PR list.
Yeah. Yes.
Thanks. Next PR, the optional image mutation in Helm chart. We had a little bit of discussion in like other syncs, but we would like Manish to you to tell us more about your scenario. So go ahead, Manish.
Yeah. So you know, like this, we are trying this Ratify on for Railway Signer, and it recently like launched the it recently launched the feature where you could use Railway Signer to sign your images with notation. And I was just following the documentation, and then I came to know about Ratify. Started using it, but what I found, like when I installed Ratify Helm chart, it installs those mutation CRDs, and it causes all the images to to be replaced. The tags will be replaced with the SHA-256 hash of the image. And we had some other OP gatekeeper policies where we were checking the tags, to make sure that in production we run the production build. So that failed. So that was my reason of creating this PR, so that people can have option to disable the mutation if they want. And we use that for one more thing, and that is for like anybody can go and see in Kubernetes, and they will know what version of my application is running. So that's why we wanted to not mutate the tags. Am I audible? Is it making sense?
Yes. I'm just digesting and reading Akash's comment.
Yeah.
And Manish, like what Akash described, like this from the security perspective, like the tag can change, and you always want to make sure that you've validated that exact digest. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so that is actually I understand the security it's a good advice, and that is what we should implement. But right now we have a proper control in our build process where we make sure like our images are mutable by default, like the tags are mutable, like immutable by default. So we have the control in our build process itself. So we don't need that control again here. Means I understand that is the best practice. That's why I'm just making it optional. Like by default, it should be true that we should have more mutation, but there would be use cases where people don't want to have that mutation by default.
Yeah. That makes sense to me. Akash, do you have additional comments?
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense, especially since it seems like it's a common theme where tags are used for versioning. Although I think the recommendation moving forward is that use other types of metadata for that instead. So I think for not breaking existing workloads, we can add this as an opt-in feature. I just want to highlight that this is not like the recommended approach Ratify will go with, and we'd recommend keeping mutation on, which is, like you said, Manish, will keep it as default true. But yeah, in the future, the security posture is still that you should not rely on tags for verifying supply chain artifacts. It should just all be digest based.
Cool. So I
Yeah,
think this
so-
PR is ready, and I was just curious why the size.
I was trying to merge master back to my branch, and I had to clean it and push a new commit.
Okay, cool.
It's not yeah. So Akash, so we tried a couple of things. So we wanted to have the image mutation. We considered that use case also, but what I found, Ratify right now, it only mutates your container images. It does not mutate your init containers, and it does not mutate your the debug containers that you attach to your pods. So that is the use case. Like that is the case that is still missing in Ratify.
Yes, that's correct. So that's actually a configuration change that we need to add to it. And we will support that in the future. It's just right now the core use case is on the pod level, with the containers defined in the spec there, and not any debug containers that are added there.
Okay.
Feynman, you have your hands.
Yeah, I want to figure out what will be the output if users disable or they set the enable mutation to false. So will Ratify remind a warning message to users if they disable this switch or the mutation switch? So I think we may need a warning message that if users are verifying the artifact based on a tag instead of a digest, we may remind about that. I think I remember notation has that warning message as a reminder.
Oh, in the program.
I mean, in the output, in the logs.
So right now, Ratify, because we are using it, so init container, it does not mutate, but I don't see warning in the logs. There is no warnings like.
Yeah, so Feynman's suggestion that we should add one.
Oh, okay. I mean, like it should be on the Helm chart or in the program.
Not in the Helm chart. I guess it should be in the Ratify itself. I mean, not for the Helm chart. I believe the output log is not controlled by the Helm chart, but Ratify itself can detect the use cases, such as if users are verifying on a image tag instead of digest.
Akash, would this be on the verifier or in the executor?
This would be in the. Actually, this would be in the server handler itself, because the mutation has its own handler. That's where we call out to the store's tag to digest resolution. So yeah, we would probably just add the log in the HTTP server handler for mutation. I guess no, because we're going to disable mutation, so there won't be any mutation CRs added to the cluster. So this would have to happen. Yeah, this would happen in the executor. You're right, Susan. Yep.
Akash, could you leave a comment in the PR to provide maybe a link to suggest where we can add a log?
Yes, I will do that. Yep.
Thank you. Cool. Thanks for the feedback, Feynman. Next PR on the list. add Helm file support, Akash. It's very cool. Like it looks like the steps are much cleaner after we've added Helm files. This one is in draft mode. So
yeah, I left it in draft mode because I wasn't sure what I wanted to get everyone's thoughts on if we even wanted to go down this route. So basically, so quick overview. So Helm file is like a tool, another open source project that's pretty popular nowadays. It allows you to aggregate different installation of Helm charts. So you can define your different Helm repositories, and then you can set up kind of as a pipeline step-by-step which Helm charts you want to install. You can set up dependencies, so which Helm charts need to have another Helm chart installed before it can install. And then finally, you can also set up extra steps where you execute commands like kubectl commands to apply external CRDs. So in Ratify's case, we would apply like the constraint in the constraint template, and those would be additional steps defined in the pipeline. And it'll make things a lot easier to install Gatekeeper, Ratify, the constraint template, all on a user's cluster who wants to just try Ratify real quick and deploy like a signed versus unsigned image. So this is an updated README where we would basically remove all of these manual steps of installing Gatekeeper, Ratify, the constraint templates, and replace it with one command, which is just a Helm file sync. And conversely, you can also clean up these resources a lot faster. So if you're uninstalling them, you just run Helm file destroy, and it just cleans everything up for you. So Susan, if you go back to the PR overview, we can just quickly show the GIF here. Yep. Yeah, so just click on it. Probably.
oh, I can click on this. Okay.
Yeah. So
is the font big enough? I don't know.
Hopefully people can see this. So it's nice because it's verbose, so it actually shows you what it's doing on the cluster. It's adding the repos for the Helm charts, installing Gatekeeper, then adding the constraint template and constraint, and then upgrading the Ratify chart on the cluster. And then at this point, you have all of the dependencies needed, and you can just run the usual signed image, see that it's created, and then same thing for the unsigned.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
So this can be used for installing HA dependencies as well?
Yeah, so that's actually where I found this first, because the HA dependency installation is very, very complicated. You have to install Dapper first, then you have to install the Redis chart, then you have to install extra Dapper components, Redis encryption key for the Dapper encryption state store component communication. All of those things are very manual, and the guide has like 15 steps at this point if you tried to manually do it. So I wrote up a Helm file for that scenario to go from the basic Ratify that you'd have running if you just ran Helm file sync, all the way to an HA supported Ratify. So the flow would be that if you had nothing installed on your cluster, you'd first run Helm file sync with the basic quick start installation. And then if you wanted to upgrade to HA, you just run the Helm file for the HA instance, and it'll just install everything on top of that with Dapper, Redis, all of the CRDs, and get you up and running with a HA supported Ratify.
So
very cool.
yeah, the question would be, why wouldn't we want to use it?
So one reason not to do it is that it requires the user install Helm file. So Helm is kind of like I feel like everyone would have that installed, because if you're dealing with Kubernetes stuff, that's common enough. Helm file is kind of a newer, well, new in a sense that it's not as mainstream as kubectl or Helm, the Helm command would be. So that's like one prerequisite that they need to install. The other part is that if we want to drill down on customers, hey, you have to, like, we work with Gatekeeper, we work with these are the different constraint templates and constraints that have to be installed on your cluster for Ratify to work properly, then this is like an automated version of that. Yes, you do see it, but you don't force the user to go through those steps. So it's just on what we want to kind of encourage people to do. From like a quick start perspective, I think it's definitely saves a lot of time and effort reading and copying all these commands that we have currently. So I'm in favor of switching over to this, but I just want to highlight that there are some reasons not to switch to this too.
Damon, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I did a quick investigation on Helm file and also iCache demo. I feel Helm file meets our needs for declaratively manage and deploy all of those dependencies for Ratify. And I think for quick start or for our demo scenario, it should be fine. But as I find that Helm file is still in an early stage, and you can see that it's still in the 0.15 version, and it mentions it's not production ready project, and it's during actively development. So my concern is that if we use Helm file for scaling Ratify instance from single instance to HA, the tool itself is not GA yet, but we use that tool for upgrading to GA, upgrading to an HA cluster. I'm not sure if users might be confused or have concerns on that. So I think use Helm file for quick start for running a Ratify and Gatekeeper is super recommended, as it simplifies a lot of things. But use that as an scaling option for HA, it might be a little bit concerned.
Yeah, that's a valid point. Any other feedback? Go ahead, E.
Yeah. Here are my comments. I think this Helm file is really cool, and I also think that it is good for quick start. I think we can provide users different options, how to, for example, how to install Ratify and also enable HA using Helm file, and we can also highlight that Helm file is not in a stable release yet, but we can also provide the option that user can use Helm command to install it step by step. I also thinking about another two scenario. One is if there is a dependency already installed in the cluster, what's the behavior of Helm file?
Yeah, that's a great point. So if there is Gatekeeper already installed and it acts as an upgrade, so it's gonna upgrade Gatekeeper to match the exact parameters and values that you set in the Helm file to match the installation on the cluster. So that's what the Helm file sync does. If it's already in sync, I believe it's a no op, but I can double check on that. But the one issue that I'm seeing is that if you try to do Helm file destroy, so you're trying to clean up the dependencies and you already had Helm Gatekeeper installed in the cluster, it doesn't recognize that. So it'll actually clean up everything that's defined in the Helm file. So this becomes a little bit of an issue when you're trying to downgrade from HA to regular Ratify. Because if you try to do Helm file destroy on the HA Helm file, then it's going to uninstall Ratify itself, when we just want to resync Ratify with the quick start Helm file version. So in that case, I've noticed that you're better off doing a Helm file sync on the original quick start Helm file, and then you manually clean up the rest of the dependencies like Redis and Dapper if you need to. So that's just one caveat there.
Yes. So I think at least for now, based on the maturity of Helm file and also its behavior, it seems it is suitable for a quick start on a clean installation, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. and the scenario covered will be in a clean installation and also upgrade to HA mode. This is what I think that ham file is feasible at this moment. Another thing is may not related to ham file, but I want to also mention here is that because we can install Ratify, right? We can install Ratify with dependencies. So I'm not sure we have this document or we investigate that if user installed some dependency like Dapper, do we have a document that how Ratify can integrate with that dependencies? Anything else? I mean, besides installation, we don't need that dependency. Anything else we want to do or configure to that dependency? I mean, this scenario is that the user already has some dependency installed. So how Ratify can integrate with that? Previously, we have Gatekeeper, right? Now we have more dependency, especially for HA enabled.
Yeah, that's a good point. We don't have a documentation on if you had existing versions of these set, what you would need to update in terms of Dapper or Redis to get it to work with Ratify. We could definitely add that though, and call out for each one of those what features need to be enabled.
Yeah, I think I can create a issue for tracking this. It's not very urgent for now, but it's better to have a issue we can tracking on that. Yeah, so this will cover some users. They already have something installed, so they want to enable HA. So how they what else they need to do? Yeah, since that's all my comments, I think overall this is cool. We can document it and also add some limitation for this. It's a good experience from users. I saw the PR, we remove many lines. That is very good, very simple for the user. Thanks.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for
Thanks
the
for the
feedback.
I believe we have one more about what we discussed last week, gracefully shut down the HTTP server. Akash, do you want to talk about this one too?
Yeah, so this one was it's a relatively small HPR, but after looking into whether or not we'll have requests being dropped during upgrade scenarios, I did find that currently we're not stopping the server correctly. We basically, when we get a SIG-term signal from Kubernetes, or if you're running a standalone server instance and you just try to terminate the instance, the process running, Ratify just closes the server immediately, dropping any active connections. So that'll result in errors. So there's many recommended ways to do this, and Go has actually introduced a way, a function that handles shutdown for it gracefully. You just have to basically catch the signal for termination, and then you call this function, giving it a certain amount of time to complete the shutdown. So it'll drain all of the connections, respond back to all the connections within a certain period of time, and then you can proceed with the shutdown of the actual process / container.
Got it. So given our timeout was, I think was 7 seconds, right? So we're setting a 6 seconds timeout for existing jobs to finish.
So our timeout is actually 5 seconds now.
Oh,
It's 5 and 2. So it's 5 for verification webhooks and 2 for mutation. So the 6 was just 5 seconds would be the worst case scenario something might take, and then I just added an extra
second as buffer. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, looks cool. Any feedback on this, anyone? Yeah, Akash, let us know once this is ready for review.
Sure, sounds good. I'm still trying to figure out how to test this properly. It's a little bit challenging because it's kind of hit or miss, depending on how fast the requests are able to be processed. You may or may not hit issues where those requests will be dropped if you terminate the instance.
Yeah, I don't know if adding like a long delay in these tests would help.
Yeah, that's probably the best
Yeah.
case scenario. Maybe have a dummy
Everything
handler
times
that's
10.
delayed. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. That's everything on our PR list. Moving on to the agenda. Yeah, we don't have any agenda. Thanks for adding the attendee list. Anyone would like to discuss anything that's not on the agenda?
I have one thing to discuss, which is about this performance testing for Ratify, maybe a single instance, and also when HA is enabled. Another thing is also related to HA. That's how user can enable HA from single instance, or user can when user is in HA mode, how they can, or whether it's possible they can disable HA and back to the single instance. I think these two are important for the stable release, the V1 stable release.
Yeah, Akash, do you have any links to the performance report?
No, so I haven't actually done the performance testing yet. That kind of buckets in the work of creating the framework for it. And what I have been looking into is the second part of what you was mentioning. What does the upgrade and downgrade experience look like? And what are the existing gaps we have in that? So that revealed like 3 major parts. So the first effort was this whole Helm file thing. How do we make it so that it's a lot easier to install all of these dependencies without having to run like 15 different commands? The second part was looking into the graceful shutdown part. And then the third part that I'm running into is that there are some TLS cert generation issues that we're running into when you upgrade from a single instance to HA or vice versa. The way we currently have it is that we generate the certificates every time the Helm chart upgrades. And during that process, the certificate generation is done as a pre-install Helm chart hook. So what that would mean is that you would have, if you try to upgrade an existing Helm chart, existing version of Ratify, you would recreate a new set of TLS certs to be used by the new deployment. And in that process, it updates the secret that would be used by Gatekeeper as well, right? So Gatekeeper also needs access to that. And there's like a period of time when the old Ratify pod is still servicing the requests, but now it's using the new TLS certs because the new set of pods haven't come up yet. So there's this discrepancy where the TLS certs don't match and new requests start to fail. So it's still in the preliminary portion of it, trying to figure out a good way to fix something like this. I think we may have to rethink how we actually generate those certificates manually and whether we need to actually generate it on Helm upgrade or not. And so I think Bin, I'll collaborate with you on that to get your ideas on it. But that's just one area I'm looking into for the upgrade scenario for now.
Yeah, thanks for the status update.
Yeah, so that means the enable HA from a single instance is not it's not working, right? Because it will require regenerate this certificate. It will break the existing existing setup, right?
Yeah, there's a period of time where it doesn't work because the certs
Oh,
are mismatched. But once the new HA pods come up and the traffic switches to the new deployment, it's when the traffic is still going to the old one, but the certs have been updated already. So that's like a period of time when any requests hitting there, those fail immediately.
Do we have a GitHub issue tracking the upgrade scenario? I thought we
I think
have identified it to be like a post GA.
I did create this issue maybe 1 or 2 weeks ago. And I think I remember we triaged this issue and identified this is not a mandatory item for V1.
Yeah.
V1, I
yeah.
think for V1, we considered only HA installation as a must, but scaling from single instance to HA is not considered yet.
Yeah. So go ahead, E.
Yeah, I think if this is the current behavior and we don't have a good solution yet, maybe we can just document it so that users are aware. And I think normally in production, because we are released stable version, right? I think normally in production, the HA should be enabled. So this scenario, we can, and also this is our first version. So there is no previous stable version that user installed as a single instance and upgrade to stable version. I think this is first stable version, and I think in production by default, HA is enabled. So I think this scenario could be put it later as we discussed previously, but we just need to document it. So if user really want to try single instance first in the production, then gradually scaling more instance, then user need to be aware of this seconds. There are some issues during that.
Yeah, sounds good. So Akash, would you be able to submit like some documentation, like a paragraph on the existing behavior?
Sure, yeah, I can add that. I will point out that I'm not super certain on this, but this issue is not just HA specific. This is an issue with if you Helm upgrade for any reason. Let's say I want to enable a new feature flag. Let's say I want to change some sort of value and I need to update the Ratify Helm chart installation. That will still have the same problem because you're regenerating a new pod. Traffic is the TLS certs as we have it right now will be regenerated also. And then you'll have this period of time when requests will drop. So
got it. Yeah, got it. I think we just call it out in the document so that users are aware. I think this is similar for other scenarios. Akash, you just mentioned, right? If user upgrades, yeah, we can call it out so that user will be aware of this. Otherwise, maybe they will create issues during that for that. And how about from HA mode to the single instance? Is there any problem in this scenario, or whether user can do that?
Yeah, so Akash is saying any modification of the feature flags would have this issue. Is that right, Akash?
Yeah, it seems to be that any modification, so if you make any sort of Helm upgrade, it's gonna regenerate the TLS certs as is right now, and then it's gonna have this temporary mismatch and requests will be dropped. So anytime you're doing a Helm upgrade command, you're gonna see this problem.
Okay, so that means from single instance to HA and from HA to single instance, it's doable, but we have the same issue for the certificate rotated, right? In a short moment.
Yes.
I think if that is the current behavior, we just need to document. User can do that, but user need to be aware of this issue. And I think it should be called for the common scenario for the HAMR upgrade as well.
Okay, sure, that makes sense. And in the meantime, we'll start looking into a solution for this, how we can fix this. So
yeah, thanks, Akash.
And for the performance test framework, is that identified for GA?
I think the performance test should be at least we need to have some data to show within single instance what's the performance, and also when a user enabled HA, what is the result, what is the data. I think yeah, we just need to have a report for that. Currently, we don't receive any specific requirements on the performance from different users or cloud providers, but we just show our result. This is the current data. And we can, if we publish it and we receive new requirements specifically, we can address it later.
Do you know the issue tracking this work? Yeah, I can add it to the notes. So we kind of just call it out. That one is for GA.
I think I created a simple issue previously. It's just said we needed to discuss, understand the Ratify scaling target, but I think I can update that issue. You can fill it out by the author and use my name. I remember I have one issue, but it is very simple. Yeah, Ratify 1.0 scale targets. It's also just for discussion. So I can update this one. Yeah, update this one to that we needed to show our data for the 1.0 release. And as I mentioned, if later we have specific requirement from users or cloud providers, we can address that later. Currently, we don't have that.
Yep, that'll be great. Cool. Anything else people would like to discuss before we wrap up?
I saw a new item in the agenda about branch strategy.
Right. I think this came up because we had a similar discussion in auras and notation. So post 1.0, we want to understand, like we should probably write up a document. What's the branch strategy? Primarily, okay, I think the goal is to make sure main can always remain open for check-in, right? We don't want to block main. So how do we ensure that when we agree that 1.0 will be released, at some point in time, it gets cut and it's on a branch, and then we might merge items from the release branch back to main, or we might cherry pick them however we feel comfortable. But just writing this up. The second one is the basic understanding of what would constitute a 1.0. So one thing that I want to probably get, my hope is that the people on the call can agree on is a 1.1 is going to support XYZ things, and this is what it's going to bring. For example, maybe we remove the experimental flag and ship that as a supported feature, and what would the minor version update be? And thirdly would be path release strategy, right? Like we should have an ability to have a 1.01 patch, which would be maybe security updates, depend-abots, minor updates, so that if people are facing a critical issue, then we should be able to kind of do a patch release as well. So this is not currently being written, but I think it's a good time for us to start because we're kind of early in the cycle. We've had a bunch of discussions around auras, and notation also needs to formulate this. So fortunately, Ratify is in an early stage where we can sort this out before we do 1.1. The other thing is kind of work to identify what does a milestone mean. Like, so when we say 1.1, my expectation would be that there's enough features in 1.1 that would warrant upgrade from somebody, right? Like if they want to upgrade, they get a few set of features. But if they just want to kind of make sure that a certain set of bugs are fixed, a patch release should be more than enough. But doesn't mean we have to release a patch. It just means that we have this defined somewhere.
Is there, Sajay, is there a existing document from auras that we should refer to?
No, that's the one I think Yi or Feynman had written, is writing one thing up. I think Shuey is also kind of like writing it up. So maybe once they have written something down, we could follow a similar pattern. But let's assume that we want to keep, the cadence will also change, right? Like you might have 1.1 RC and you might have multiple 1.1 RCs, and that's okay as long as we agree what 1.1 means.
Yeah, I can create a tracking issue.
Sure. The other thing is, if the main branch diverges a lot, then it's going to be hard to kind of like patch a 1.01. So maybe cherry picking from main to that branch to the release branch might not be possible. But I think the other way should be possible somehow. So we need to kind of think about, be conscious that if we make changes, certain changes might not be portable depending on how things are written. But we should at least have some clarity on the fact that there might be a patch release. And given that this is a fast moving piece, I'm sure we'll have some patch releases. But a minor version bump is only additive. We're not at a point of major yet. I haven't seen any 2.0 features yet. So that's why I'm focusing only on 1.1 and 1.01. So we'll kind of like discuss them in the next call, next few weeks, maybe.
Yeah, sounds good. I will create a tracking issue for that.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for joining, everyone. Have a good evening and day.
Thanks, both. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thanks.